The darkness on Kavaris 9 was not like the darkness of space. Space was empty, vast, almost peaceful in its silence. But the darkness here felt alive, thick, suffocating, as if it pressed against your skin and crawled into your lungs. It carried the echoes of things that had once lived and things that still did. Saren Vallis stood alone in that darkness, her breathing shallow inside her cracked helmet. The faint blue glow of her suit's failing power core flickered weakly, barely illuminating the jagged rocks around her. Her people were gone. Every last one of them. The expedition had been ambitious, too ambitious. The Council had sent them to map Kavaris 9, a planet cloaked in electromagnetic storms and ancient ruins that pulsed with unknown energy signatures. Saren had been one of their best explorers, trained to survive harsh worlds. But nothing could prepare anyone for what they had found here, or what had found them. The creatures had come from the ruins, shadows that moved without sound, bodies twisting unnaturally as if reality itself rejected their form. They had torn through the team in minutes. Weapons had done nothing. Shields had flickered and died. Saren had run. She hated herself for it, but she had run. Now, hours later, or maybe days, time had become meaningless. She stood on the edge of a deep ravine, staring into the abyss below. Her oxygen was nearly gone. Her suit systems were failing one by one. Her communicator emitted only static. There was no rescue coming. Saren closed her eyes. "This is it," she whispered. Her voice sounded small, swallowed by the darkness. She had always imagined her end differently. Perhaps in the void of space, watching stars fade as her ship drifted. Or in battle, surrounded by her people. Not here. Not alone. Her legs trembled as she stepped closer to the edge. A strange calm settled over her. The fear, the guilt, the grief, they all faded into something distant. All she had to do was take one more step, and it would be over. She lifted her foot. "Hey." The voice came from behind her. Saren froze. It was wrong. Not distorted like the creatures. Not echoing like the planet itself. It was clear.
Warm. Alive.
Her heart slammed against her ribs. Slowly she turned. At first, she saw nothing but darkness. Then, a faint beam of light cut through the black, a handheld lamp, steady and bright. And behind it stood a figure.
Tall.
Solid. Wrapped in unfamiliar armor. A human. Saren stared, her mind struggling to process what she was seeing. Humans weren't supposed to be here. This sector was far beyond their mapped territories. Even if they had ventured this far, no human could survive Kavaris 9 storms, let alone whatever horrors lurked in its ruins. Yet the figure stepped closer, the light revealing more details. A worn exosuit, scuffed plating, a cracked visor, but behind it, she could just make out a pair of eyes, focused and steady. "You planning on jumping?" the human said, his voice calm, "or just thinking about it?" Saren didn't answer. She couldn't. Her throat tightened as emotions surged back all at once. Fear, confusion, a flicker of something she hadn't felt in hours.
Hope.
"No one else made it," she finally said, her voice breaking. "They're all gone." The human nodded slowly, as if he already knew. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I figured." Saren clenched her fists. "Then why are you here?" she demanded. "Why aren't you running?" A faint, almost tired smile touched his lips. "Because I found you." The simplicity of his answer stunned her. He stepped closer, careful, as if approaching a wounded animal. "My name's Elias," he said. "Elias Rook." Saren hesitated. "Saren." "All right, Saren," Elias said. "Let's get you away from that edge." She shook her head. "You don't understand," she whispered. There's no escape. My oxygen, my suit, it's failing. Even if I don't jump, I'll suffocate out here. Or worse. Her gaze flicked to the darkness behind him. Something moved. Elias noticed it too. His expression hardened, but he didn't turn. Then we don't stay out here, he said. There's nowhere to go. There's always somewhere to go. His voice carried a quiet certainty that cut through her panic. Saren laughed bitterly. You're insane. Probably, he admitted. But I'm still alive. And you can be too. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then, slowly, Elias extended his hand.
Come on, he said.
Saren stared at it. A simple gesture. So small. So human. Her people didn't do this. They didn't reach out like this. Not in the face of death. They accepted fate with dignity, with silence. But this was different. This was defiance. Her chest tightened. I'm tired, she whispered. I know, Elias said gently. I can't keep running. You don't have to run, he replied. Just walk. One step at a time. The darkness behind them shifted again. Closer. Saren's breath hitched. She looked at his hand. Then, with trembling fingers, she reached out. And took it. His grip was warm.
Solid. Real.
For the first time since the attack, Saren felt grounded. Anchored to something that wasn't fear or despair. Elias didn't let go. Good, he said. Now, let's move. They walked together, his light cutting a narrow path through the darkness. The terrain was uneven, treacherous, but Elias guided her with steady confidence. Where are we going? She asked. There's an old structure not far from here, he said. I've been using it as shelter. You've been here alone? For a while. Saren glanced at him. You're not afraid? Elias chuckled softly. Oh, I'm terrified, he said. I just don't let it stop me. That was another strange thing about humans she realized. They didn't ignore fear. They carried it and kept going anyway. A distant screech echoed through the darkness. Saren flinched. They're coming, she said. Yeah, Elias replied. They always are. He picked up the pace, pulling her along. The ground sloped upward, leading to a cluster of jagged rocks. Beyond them, a faint outline emerged, a structure, ancient and weathered, its surface etched with glowing patterns. Saren's eyes widened. The ruins. Not all of it is bad, Elias said. Some parts still work. They reached the entrance, a narrow opening barely large enough to squeeze through. Elias ducked inside, pulling Saren with him. The moment they crossed the threshold, the darkness receded. Soft light filled the chamber, emanating from the walls themselves. Saren gasped. It's beautiful. The interior was vast, its architecture unlike anything she had seen. Smooth curves blended with sharp angles, forming a space that felt both alien and strangely welcoming. Elias finally released her hand. You're safe here, he said. For how long? He shrugged. Long enough. Saren sank to the ground, her body trembling with exhaustion. Her suit beeped weakly. Low oxygen, she murmured. Elias knelt beside her, pulling a small device from his pack. Here, he said. Emergency supply. He pressed it against her suit, and she felt a rush of fresh air flow into her system. Relief washed over her. Thank you, she said. Elias nodded. Get some rest, he said. We'll figure out the next step in the morning. Saren looked at him. You really think we can get off this planet? Elias met her gaze. I don't know, he admitted. But I know one thing. What? You don't die tonight. Something in his voice, firm, unwavering, made her believe him. For the first time since everything had gone wrong, Saren allowed herself to close her eyes. Morning never came to Kavari's 9, but time passed. And in that strange, glowing refuge, Saren began to feel something she thought she had lost forever. Safety. Elias told her stories about Earth, about stars she had never seen, about people who refused to give up even when the odds were impossible. She listened, and slowly, the weight inside her chest began to lift. But the planet hadn't forgotten them. The creatures grew more aggressive, their presence pressing against the ruins like a storm waiting to break. "We can't stay here forever," Saren said one cycle. Elias nodded. "I know. What's the plan?" He hesitated. Then he smiled. "We make one." The final journey was the hardest. They moved together through the darkness, back toward the crash site where Saren's ship lay in ruins. If anything still worked, it would be there. The creatures hunted them relentlessly. But this time, Saren didn't freeze. She didn't run in blind panic. She fought, not with weapons, but with courage, with purpose, with the memory of a human hand holding hers in the dark. When they finally reached the ship, it was barely recognizable. But Elias got to work, his hands moving with practiced skill. "Can it fly?" Saren asked. "Probably not," he said, "but it might transmit." Hope flickered again. Behind them, the darkness surged. "They're coming," Saren said. "Then we don't have much time." The signal powered up slowly, too slowly. The creatures closed in, their forms writhing at the edge of vision. Saren stepped forward. "I'll hold them off." Elias grabbed her arm. "No." "You said I wouldn't die tonight," she said. "You didn't say anything about yourself." He met her gaze. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then, without a word, he took her hand again. "Neither of us dies," he said. Together, they stood. Together, they fought. And when the signal finally burst into the void, a desperate call for help, it carried more than just coordinates. It carried defiance. It carried hope. It carried the unbreakable truth that even in the darkest places, no one had to face it alone. Ending. Rescue came. Not immediately. Not easily. But it came. When the ships finally broke through the storm clouds of Kavaris 9, they found 2 survivors standing amidst the ruins, exhausted, battered, but alive. Saren looked at Elias as the light of salvation washed over them. "You were right," she said softly. "About what?" "There's always somewhere to go." Elias smiled. "Yeah," he said. "Usually forward." As they were lifted from the darkness of that cursed world, Saren realized something had changed. She had been ready to die, ready to let go. But a single moment, a single hand reaching out in the dark, had changed everything. And as she held on to that hand once more, she knew one thing for certain. No matter how deep the darkness became, she would never face it alone again.